The Veil Between Worlds. Prologue. The city of Nitharis was asleep, blanketed by a thick golden mist that hung like forgotten dreams. Beneath the ancient clock tower, a young man stood motionless, his raven-black hair shimmering faintly under the glow of the crescent moon. Adrian, a quiet, enigmatic soul who always felt the weight of a reality that didn't quite belong to him. Since childhood, he had glimpsed fleeting visions of another world, a place where mountains floated in the sky and rivers shimmered with silver light. His dreams whispered of lush forests filled with melodies of creatures too wondrous to exist, and a boy whose smile could command the stars. Tonight, everything would change. Beneath his feet, the cobblestones trembled with an energy that didn't belong to this dimension. A circle of ancient runes began glowing in the air, a thin veil of light forming a doorway. Adrian's heart pounded as the veil rippled, revealing a breathtaking figure on the other side. Tall and regal, with golden hair that seemed to capture the light of 1,000 sunsets, stood Kalen. His vibrant amber eyes met Adrian's, holding a mix of determination and longing. He stepped through the veil, crossing into Adrian's world as if fate itself demanded it. "You've felt it too, haven't you?" Kalen's voice was both familiar and otherworldly, rich with an unspoken history that resonated deep within Adrian. Adrian could barely find his voice. "Felt what?" Kalen's gaze softened. "The pull between us. Our worlds were never meant to exist apart, and neither were we." Chapter 1. First Encounters. The air was thick with tension as Adrian and Kalen sat across from one another in Adrian's modest apartment. The surreal reality of what had just happened settled over them like a fragile thread threatening to snap. Adrian finally broke the silence. "You can't just step into someone's life and say things like that." Kalen tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I've seen you in my dreams, Adrian, long before tonight. Don't tell me you haven't seen me too." Adrian's cheeks flushed. The truth clawed at him, but he wasn't ready to admit it. "That doesn't explain what you're doing here. How is this even possible?" Kalen's expression turned serious. "The veil between our worlds is collapsing. I'm here because the balance between Nitharis and Valorin is breaking. But more than that," he leaned forward, his voice softening, "I'm here for you." Adrian's breath hitched. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Kalen's amber eyes locked onto Adrian's green ones, the intensity of his gaze making Adrian's chest tighten. "You've felt the same pull. Tell me I'm wrong." Adrian wanted to argue, to dismiss the absurdity of it all, but the truth burned in his chest. He had felt the pull. For years, the visions and dreams had been his only solace in an otherwise monotonous life. But now, the embodiment of those dreams sat across from him, real and impossibly beautiful. "If what you're saying is true," Adrian began carefully, "why me? Out of all the people in the world?" Kalen's smile was sad but tender. "Because our souls are intertwined. Even if our worlds weren't falling apart, I would have found you. I always find you." The weight of those words hung between them, and Adrian's resolve began to crumble. "So what happens now?" Adrian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kalen reached across the table, his fingers brushing against Adrian's hand. A spark of warmth spread through Adrian's body, unlike anything he'd ever felt. "Now, we find a way to save both our worlds, together." Chapter 2. Shadows of Destiny. As days turned into weeks, Kalen became a constant presence in Adrian's life. The once ordinary routines were now filled with glimpses of wonder and magic. Kalen would often tell stories of Valorin, of its floating islands and cascading waterfalls that defied gravity. But beneath his awe-inspiring tales lay a growing fear. "The Umbra," Kalen said one evening, his voice low and grim. "It's a force that feeds on imbalance. The cracks in the veil are letting it seep into both our worlds." Adrian frowned. "How do we stop it?" Kalen hesitated before answering. "There's a legend in Valorin about two souls destined to restore balance. They must face the Umbra together and make the ultimate sacrifice. Adrian's heart sank. Sacrifice. Kaelin's gaze was pained. One of them must remain in the void between worlds, holding the veil together forever. The weight of Kaelin's words lingered in the room. Adrian's mind raced, grappling with the enormity of what they were facing. He looked at Kaelin, who'd risked everything to come here, and a surge of emotion overwhelmed him. "We'll find another way," Adrian said firmly. "There has to be another way." Kaelin's lips curved into a faint smile. "You always were stubborn in my dreams." Adrian rolled his eyes, though a small smile tugged at his own lips. "Maybe your dreams didn't do me justice." Kaelin laughed, a sound so pure and warm it made Adrian's chest ache. In that moment, despite the looming darkness, they found solace in each other's presence. But the Umbra wouldn't wait. And as their bond grew deeper, so did the realization that time was running out. Chapter 3. Threads of Fate. Adrian could feel the subtle shifts in the world around him. The cracks in the veil weren't just abstract notions anymore. They were becoming tangible. Nights were colder, shadows stretched longer, and an unnatural stillness often blanketed the city. Kaelin had been restless, spending hours studying the ancient tomes he had brought from Valorin. Their pages, inscribed with shifting runes, glowed faintly as Kaelin deciphered their secrets. Adrian watched him one evening, his golden hair illuminated by the soft light of the runes. "You don't rest much, do you?" Adrian asked, handing Kaelin a mug of tea. Kaelin looked up, his expression softening as he took the mug. "I can't afford to. Every moment counts." Adrian sat down beside him. "You're not in this alone, you know." Kaelin's amber eyes met his. "I know, and that's what keeps me going." Adrian felt his heart skip a beat. Kaelin's sincerity was disarming, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. For a moment, the weight of their shared destiny faded, replaced by the quiet intimacy of their connection. "What are you working on now?" Adrian asked, leaning closer to peer at the runes. Kaelin hesitated before responding. "There might be a way to stabilize the veil without the sacrifice." Adrian's eyes widened. "Really? How?" Kaelin sighed. "It's theoretical. The runes suggest a ritual that could merge the energy of our two worlds, creating a new equilibrium. But it's risky. If something goes wrong, we have to try," Adrian interrupted. "If there's even a chance." Kaelin placed a hand over Adrian's. "We will. But I need you to promise me something." Adrian nodded. "Anything." Kaelin's gaze was intense. "If it comes down to it, and the only way to save both worlds is the sacrifice, let me be the one to stay behind." Adrian's breath caught. "Number, I won't." "Promise me," Kaelin insisted, his voice breaking. "Please." Tears pricked Adrian's eyes as he shook his head. "I can't. Don't ask me to." Kaelin pulled Adrian into a tight embrace, his voice a whisper against Adrian's ear. "I would rather lose myself in the void than lose you." Adrian clung to him, his heart aching with a pain he couldn't describe. "We'll find another way," he murmured. "Together." Kaelin didn't respond, but the silence spoke volumes. They both knew the odds were stacked against them, but for now, they had each other, and that was enough to keep hope alive. Final chapter. The Veil's Last Stand. The air crackled with tension as Adrian and Kaelin stood in the heart of the Veil, a shimmering expanse of shifting lights, suspended between their two worlds. Around them, fragments of Netherys and Valorin overlapped. Floating islands from Kaelin's world drifted alongside the skyscrapers of Adrian's city, creating a chaotic, breathtaking collision of realities. But it was no longer beautiful. The cracks in the veil had widened, and the Umbra, a mass of writhing darkness, pushed through, hungry and relentless. It devoured everything it touched, erasing the worlds piece by piece. Kaelin tightened his grip on Adrian's hand. His amber eyes were calm, though his voice trembled with emotion. "This is it. If the ritual works, the veil will stabilize, and the Umbra will be forced back into the void." "And if it doesn't?" Adrian asked, his voice barely audible over the howling winds. Kaelin looked at him with a bittersweet smile. Then one of us must stay behind, to hold it together, to save them. Adrian shook his head, his grip on Kaelin's hand tightening. We're doing this together, remember? We'll make the ritual work. There won't be any sacrifices. Kaelin opened his mouth to protest, but Adrian cut him off. Don't even think about it. I'm not losing you. Kaelin's eyes softened. You're so stubborn. Adrian gave a shaky laugh. Took you this long to figure that out? The ground beneath them trembled and the umbra surged forward, its inky tendrils reaching for the glowing runes etched into the floor. Kaelin and Adrian stepped into the circle of light, their movements perfectly synchronized. Kaelin began chanting in the ancient language of Valorin, his voice steady and resonant. Adrian followed, reciting the words Kaelin had taught him. The runes flared to life, their golden glow pushing back the encroaching darkness. The umbra screamed, its form twisting and writhing as the light intensified. But as the ritual progressed, Adrian felt the strain of the energy pulling at him. It was as if the veil itself was demanding a price, a final offering to seal the balance. Kaelin faltered, his chanting slowing as he realized what was happening. Adrian, no, I can handle it, Adrian said through gritted teeth, even as the light around him grew blinding. Kaelin grabbed his arm, his voice desperate. It's taking you! Adrian, stop! Adrian turned to Kaelin, his green eyes filled with determination. I told you, we're doing this together. I'm not letting you go. Kaelin's expression crumbled, but he didn't let go. Instead, he stepped closer, wrapping his arms around Adrian. Then neither of us goes. If this is the end, we face it together. The runes exploded with light, their energy enveloping both of them. The umbra let out a final piercing scream before it was pulled back into the void, the veil knitting itself together in a dazzling display of gold and silver light. For a moment, everything was silent. And then, the world around them began to fade. Epilogue. A new dawn. Adrian woke to the sound of birdsong. He blinked against the soft light filtering through the trees above him. The air smelled of earth and flowers, and a gentle breeze caressed his face. He sat up slowly, his heart racing as he took in his surroundings. He was in a forest unlike any he'd ever seen. Trees with golden leaves stretched high into the sky, their branches woven with glowing vines. Streams of silver water trickled through the mossy ground, and the air shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Valorin, he whispered. A familiar voice broke through his awe. You're awake. Adrian turned to see Kaelin standing a few feet away, his golden hair catching the sunlight. Relief and joy flooded Adrian's chest as he scrambled to his feet. Kaelin! He closed the distance between them, pulling Kaelin into a tight embrace. Kaelin held him just as fiercely, his voice thick with emotion. I thought I'd lost you. Adrian pulled back just enough to look into Kaelin's eyes. What happened? Did we? We did it, Kaelin said softly. The veil is whole again. The umbra is gone. Adrian let out a shaky breath, the weight of their ordeal finally lifting. And this is Valorin? Kaelin nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. It is. The veil couldn't keep us in Nithris after the ritual, but we're here, together. Adrian's heart swelled. He glanced around, marveling at the beauty of Kaelin's world. It's incredible. Everything I imagined and more. Kaelin's smile widened. I've waited my whole life to show it to you. Adrian reached for Kaelin's hand, lacing their fingers together. Lead the way then. Kaelin gave a playful tug on Adrian's hand, pulling him deeper into the forest. As they walked, Adrian couldn't help but admire how the sunlight wrapped itself around Kaelin, illuminating every strand of his golden hair. They came to a clearing where a crystal-clear pool shimmered beneath a cascading waterfall. The water glowed faintly, reflecting the golden leaves above. Kaelin stopped, turning to face Adrian. This was my favorite place as a child, Kaelin said softly. It feels untouched by time, a place where I could always find peace. Adrian stepped closer, his gaze locked on Kaelin's. It's beautiful, but it doesn't hold a candle to you. Kalen chuckled, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. You always know what to say to make me melt. Adrian smirked, his voice lowering. Good, because I've been meaning to say this for a while. He reached out, cupping Kalen's face gently. You're the reason I found myself again. You're my anchor, Kalen. My home. Kalen's breath hitched, his amber eyes glistening with unshed tears. He leaned into Adrian's touch, his voice a whisper. And you're my light in the dark. My heart. The space between them disappeared as Adrian tilted his head, their lips meeting in a kiss that was slow and deep, a melding of emotions too vast for words. Time seemed to stand still as they lost themselves in each other, the connection between them stronger than ever. When they finally pulled apart, Kalen rested his forehead against Adrian's, his hand cradling the back of Adrian's neck. Promise me one thing, Kalen murmured. Anything, Adrian replied, his voice soft. No matter what happens, we face it together. Always. Adrian smiled, brushing a strand of golden hair from Kalen's face. Always. Kalen took Adrian's hand again, guiding him toward the edge of the pool. He dipped his toes into the water, the glow rippling outward. Adrian followed, the warmth of the water surprising him. This is the heart of Valorin, Kalen explained. It's said to be connected to the very essence of our world. The water is imbued with the energy of life itself. Adrian knelt beside the pool, trailing his fingers through the water. It's incredible, just like everything here. Kalen crouched beside him, their shoulders brushing. And it's all ours now. Adrian turned to Kalen, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Are you saying I'm stuck with you forever? Kalen laughed, the sound warm and rich. Absolutely. Think you can handle that? Adrian leaned in, his voice playful. Oh, I think I'll manage. They shared another kiss, the world around them a blur of light and warmth. In that moment, surrounded by Valorin's beauty, they knew they had found something eternal, each other. Hand in hand, they sat by the pool, their futures unwritten but full of promise. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bound by a love that transcended worlds.